I call Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Green Party to speak generally on the government's economic strategy as it relates to the bills before us. As we heard earlier today from my colleague Dr. Russell Norman, the government's strategy effectively boils down to borrowing more money, enough to prop up economic activity, mostly in the non-tradable sector. Christchurch Rebuild is going to add some to that, so that they can scrape together an ostensible surplus in the government books and make GDP look a little bit better by the next election. Now, the problem with this strategy is quite obvious. It is completely unsustainable in every sense of the word, and it does not reflect true progress, economic or otherwise. The government's own forecasts show that their strategy is going to lead to our current account deficit growing to $17 billion by 2017. That means that in 4 years we'll be spending even more money than we do now, and even more than we are going to be earning our way in the world. This is completely unsustainable. This imbalance in our economy is going to result in the quality of life of New Zealanders being worse off, because there will eventually be a correction. And the sooner we face up to the true fundamental structural issues in our economy, the better off we are going to be. And the Green Party stands for a clean green economy that works for all New Zealanders, not just the few, not just the government's mates, not just those who are already doing very well under the current circumstances. The Green Party has been setting the agenda and leading the debate on policies that will deliver a smart green economy for all New Zealanders. And a perfect example of that is the initiative that the previous speaker referred to, which was the home insulation scheme. The Green Party worked very hard to negotiate the home insulation scheme with the previous Labour-led government, and worked very hard again to ensure that it continued to exist under the National-led government when they came in 2008. Now, the National government scaled back the proposal that the Green Party had put forward, by quite significantly. It was about a third of what the Green Party was proposing. But we were able to convince National that it was a good idea to invest in insulation. It was a great way to create jobs in the wake of the financial crisis in the building sector. It's been proven to have had enormous economic benefits, not only in energy efficiency, but even more in health benefits. And so those are the kinds of smart green ideas that the Green Party has been putting forward and that are being taken up by both of the big parties. And thank goodness the Green Party has been in Parliament to talk some sense into both of the big parties. Unfortunately, the National Party is not taking up our smart green ideas on climate change. Today in the United States, President Obama gave an historic speech calling for urgent action on the most serious issue of our time. He admitted that we cannot continue to drill and mine and extract fossil fuels and also meet the challenge of climate change and provide a healthy, stable climate for our children and grandchildren. Our children and grandchildren deserve to inherit a world where they can live and be healthy and do well without having to worry about increasing frequency and severity of storms resulting from human-induced climate change. Now, the issue is so clear and stark. The choices we have in front of us are so clear, and in the future, we will look back at this time in 2013 and ask ourselves, what was the National Party thinking? Why didn't they take this opportunity to help us future-proof New Zealand's economy so that we could do our part? Mr. Speaker, I know New Zealanders care about our future. I know they care about our planet. I know they care about their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children who are yet to be born. And I know they are willing to do their part. What is unfair is that this national government is not taking the steps. They are denying New Zealanders the choice to transition to a clean, green economy that would work for all New Zealanders, not just the few, not just the National Party's rich mates. The National Party has its head in the sand on this issue. We have asked government ministers time and time again do they recognize the challenge of human-induced climate change? Do they recognize that it is real? As President Obama, President of the United States, a large trading partner that the National Party is trying to court for a free trade deal, he said he has no patience for climate deniers. And yet our Minister of Finance has made statements in this House to the effect that it may well be real. So it's clear that the national government has its head in the sand. All they have done on the issue is weaken an already very weak emissions trading scheme. Essentially, it has become a meaningless and complicated charade that hides big subsidies to polluters. Let's come to the issue of affordable housing, because the Green Party has also been leading the debate on affordable housing, and the Green Party has been speaking about the merits of a capital gains tax since the early 2000s. Well, it wasn't me, but it was our former co-leader, Rod Donald, who was begging the Labour-led government in 2002 to institute a capital gains tax. And unfortunately, it's great the Labour Party is capable of learning, and they have come on board with many policies, such as a capital gains tax. And I think they advocate very well for it now, and I, do credit where it's due. But it was Rod Donald who was begging the Labour Party to institute a capital gains tax back in 2002, and it would have contributed quite a lot of revenue to the government's books, and it would have potentially dampened the housing price bubble that we are continuing to see in Auckland.
Why didn't they act on
The National Party is supposedly going to achieve affordable housing by through their Housing Accords bill, which has been introduced, is still before the House, by enabling developers to set up in special zones where they will be completely free from the Resource Management Act, completely free from agreed unitary plan or district plan rules, and they will be under orders of this particular bill, if it passes into law, to provide areas that are mainly housing. Now, we've seen in other countries that rural subdivisions or fringe subdivisions that are mainly housing have been incredibly harmful for the economy. In fact, it was those car-dependent, housing-only suburbs where house prices collapsed first, because people were too far away from services and jobs, and they couldn't afford to keep driving to those services and jobs. So as their transport costs increased, the value of their houses collapsed, and they found themselves owing more money than what the house was worth. So the National Party has a lot of talk and no action on housing. There are a lot of talk and no action on climate change. And as we've seen today, there are a lot of talk and no action on transport, because we've seen the government finally admit that rail is the best option to address congestion, to ensure that Auckland's able to grow in a sustainable way, to ensure that business and economic interests are met by our transport. And of course, the Green Party has been an advocate of rail in Auckland and elsewhere in New Zealand for quite a long time, and we've led the debate, actually, because the Green Party was begging the Labour-led government in 2006 and 2007 to electrify the rail line. And I know that the member, Phil Twyford, was not here at that time in 2006, 2007, so it wasn't his fault. But Michael Cullen did not want to electrify Auckland's rail line, and it was the Green Party that managed to force the Clark-Cullen government to contribute the money for electrification to ensure that Auckland's rail development could go forward. And now we see the national-led government admitting, well, trying to claim credit for what was essentially a Green Party initiative committed under the Labour-led government in 2007. And now they're trying to claim credit for the City Rail Link and future rail development that they will not commit funding to. When the national government says 2020 will be the construction start of the City Rail Link, that means that John Key will be long gone and New Zealand will be stuck heavily paying back the debt that was incurred by this government on these crazy motorways that have no economic case. So, unfortunately, the National-led government, although they finally admitted that rail is the future for Auckland, is still delaying the solutions that Auckland really needs. And the Green Party will continue to argue for the economic solutions that will help New Zealand.
Sorry, member's time has expired. Call
Speaker.
Maggie Berry.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to